Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens City Shade Tree Commission. We're going to begin as usual with right-of-way issues. There's a request for at least inspection and possibly removal of 2 trees on Elmwood. At 5 Elmwood we've got probably a Japanese elm, Zelkova, and at 10 Elmwood there's a sugar maple. Jared, I don't know if you want to describe what you've seen of these trees.
So the one on 5 Elmwood has been in decline for at least the last 2 years of just watching it. I'm in that kind of neighborhood. It doesn't provide any shade anyway. It's just a bunch of twigs. So I don't think it's going to fall over or hurt anybody, but definitely it's not providing shade. It's in decline. It's going to probably be dead in a year or 2. The other one at 10 Elmwood, that's a sugar maple. That's also in decline. There's a lot of crown dieback on that, I think, in the center. That, again, is not providing much shade. It's going to die soon. That should probably also be removed, but there isn't any other trees in that area. So we would have to, if we take those out, we probably have to put something in there to replace them.
And there is no immediate hazard from what we could see, other than perhaps on the maple there were some large limbs going straight up that looked like they were dead. But I think the city could probably remove those in the interim before the tree itself is removed.
Yep.
So I think we should just put it on the list of these 2 sites as trees to be removed long term and replaced. Okay, landscape ordinance issues. The first one is Palmer Place. Mr. Valentor. Mr. Valentor?
Oh, you're right.
We're ready to talk about Palmer Place.
You're right.
Well, 1 second, please, because I gave Mr. Lowe the wrong envelope. And he went back to get it.
Okay. We can move on and just talk about 964 East State Street, because I can see you're there, David.
Let him go right ahead. One thing.
You already have a package.
We have a copy of the plans.
Great.
I visited the site. What I saw there was that you seem to be taking a residence and turning it into a business,
Exactly.
and that's why you've got to come into compliance with the rules. What I saw was a heavily wooded lot with a tree-lined driveway, a parking lot that looked a bit exposed, and a house.
Right.
Is that a good summary of what we've got there?
It is. The parking lot is also on a piece of exposed land, which was exposed. We didn't cut a single tree.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah. And from what I can see in terms of the new ordinance, you probably comply in terms of the impermeable surfaces just by the trees that are planted along the driveway. Because there we simply take the total impermeable space, which I calculated at 12,500 or 12,600 square feet, which comes out to be 7 trees. And I think you've got more than 7 trees along that driveway. And so I think all we're going to do is we're going to make a note in to the code officer that in order to be in compliance there need to be 7 trees that are always planted close to the impermeable surfaces, and that currently that is the state of affairs, and that as far as the permeable area it's tree covered. There's no need for additional calculations or anything to be done on that.
Okay.
And as long as that tree coverage is maintained, and I get the impression you're probably not going to carve into the hillside or do anything like that at the moment.
Not at all.
And then the only other thing was we thought, or I think, perhaps a recommendation from us to plant 3 trees along the edge of the southern edge of that parking lot would be a good idea. But you don't have to do it. But I think it would be a good idea.
We'll certainly entertain that.
Yeah,
we did want to leave the southern exposure there available so that we thought about it, and we kind of like to have a little sun hit that paving to melt the snow on
Well,
occasion.
I was looking at it from the perspective of a little bit of shade for people parking there, and also the stability long term, which the trees could help you with that slope.
I don't think there's any issue at all.
But, I mean, we wouldn't insist on it because, as I say, there are enough trees along that driveway, which is part of the impermeable surfaces
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
add up to...
more than half the driveway is actually permeable, because it's only half of it that's actually paved, the rest is
okay.
stone,
Okay,
so.
even better.
Okay,
So that, everyone in agreement with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
sounds fine.
Okay, fine, then that's,
that's it?
Simple.
yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew yours would be quick, that's why I said we'd
Okay.
we'd bring you on before we did we dealt with Palmer Place.
Okay.
So, thank you for the plans anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Valentor.
I'm helping Mr. Valentor out.
Very good.
Sorry.
We visited Palmer Place. We looked around. We saw that some things appeared to have changed on the original plans in terms of where concrete had been poured and where we expected trees to be planted. We also noted that in some cases the way the trees had been planted didn't really help the numbers of trees on the site. That there was some. We think that both for the old ordinance, as this was approved under, and for the new ordinance, there aren't sufficient trees in the plan that you were proposing to us.
That's what you're saying, first of all?
Yes, yeah, we think that under both plans, under both ordinances, you need about 95 trees.
Well, first of all, let me just go through, the first, I've given you two drawings up there to look at. The drawing listed number A is the actual plan that was approved, I think, May 6th, or March 6th last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
This is the layout we had at that point in time. Or, I'm sorry, plan, yeah.
Yeah, Plan A is the original plan, I believe, that we
Right.
approved.
That plan, if I'm not mistaken, if you add up all the trees that we had in that particular arrangement, there were 73 if you added the large trees with the small trees being 50% of the large trees.
I'll have to
The
find
new,
my...
the
Okay,
new
go on,
plan, I mean, I was just saying, pardon me?
go on, carry on.
The new plan that we have submitted actually has 75 trees, if you do it by the same formula in terms of 50% for small trees versus large trees. A lot of things happened during the construction that prevented us from being capable of executing the original plan. Not only the field conditions which we were experiencing, but also the change in the ordinance had effect on that. The February 18, 2008 ordinance, when we did the calculations, at least when I did the calculations, indicated that the number of trees required, and I think I indicated this in a letter to you, would be 69 trees and not
Yes.
95.
Yes, but that was because you didn't include the area of the buildings.
Well,
What we do for an area like this, or for any of these things, we simply take the total area of the plot and divide by 1767, and that tells us how many trees in total are going to be required. We can then split them between permeable and impermeable, according to that description in the ordinance, but the total number of trees would be the same.
then I'm just trying to, I'm trying to go through, and I've gone through the ordinance as well. And from what I could determine when I read the ordinance, and this is something that, the city and everybody else has to work this out, obviously. But in the zoning code for the city of Athens, there's a bulk controls issue that normally we deal with when designing on any piece of property. The bulk controls indicate for at least 4 out of the 7 different zones, the percentage of, well, all the different zones that we're allowed to build in, the percentage of the site that is allowed to be used for building versus what needs to be left open for either landscaping or parking. Most of the business zones that are indicated in the bulk controls, at least B1, B2, B3, and M1, indicate that the maximum lot coverage restrictions by code is 100%. So therefore, when I'm doing alterations, and we just did this for the college bookstore on Court and Union, we did not have to have any open space for parking or for landscaping. Now, I'm just saying from what you're saying though, technically, because I don't see anything in the ordinance that is related to Title 37 and landscaping that distinguishes between zones, I should have had to have trees planted in that site as well, if you're going to consider the area of the building as part of what comes under your jurisdiction for landscaping and planting. As I go through Title 37 and read the definitions of what your intentions are, an impermeable surface, definitions of impermeable surface are: an impermeable surface is one that water will not penetrate, such as concrete or asphalt, and that will not support the growth of large shade trees. Further, the intent of the code is to improve the appearance of off-street parking areas, vehicular use areas, those areas used by vehicles for passage or parking that are not covered by an impervious surface, including but not limited to parking lots, driveways, etc., and parking and properties abutting private or public right-of-ways. I don't see where the building area should be included in the calculations for the areas required to be planted in trees. You know, that's the first submission that was approved by you on this particular project had 73 trees, technically. My proposed submission, which was rejected on November 30th, had 75 trees if you did the calculations for large and small trees. I increased the number of trees in my proposal, I thought, and I tried as best as I could using the new regulations to provide barriers between Stimson Avenue and State Street, where basically that is the view lines that are created by this parking lot adjacent to Palmer Place. So I thought that I was doing okay here in terms of my compliance with the regulations from the Tree Commission. I was sort of surprised that I was expected to provide 95 trees on this property.
Well, we will have to check the numbers then, because, as I said, when I did the
I know. I got your letter, David, and
Yeah.
I read it through it, and this is just my response to
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, as I said, the response I got was 69 trees and 69 trees, and that was this is the first time I've seen this tonight, so I will,
Okay.
we will obviously have to consider it.
Now, I didn't give you full-scale drawings. These are not to scale. You already have the scaled drawings. I gave them to you in my last presentation here, and pretty much the same thing. And this,
Yeah, we've got the larger.
okay. I also, and I can leave these with you. I won't go through this tonight because I don't think it's worthy, but the first presentation was done on a more schematic idea of the concept of this project. A lot of things occurred during the actual formulation of the project, or a lot of things were uncovered. And believe it or not, even in the city of Athens, everybody isn't 100% sure of where underground piping, storm lines, et cetera, are running in the city.
Say it isn't so.
And we, in my first proposal, I have submitted to you, I had planted trees over a 5-foot storm culvert built out of brick that can't be done. We can't, I mean, talking with other
So
people in the city, we can't plant trees over top of those fragile infrastructure-ish items.
so does that account for the missing trees that were on that
Correct.
line?
That's absolutely
there?
correct.
Okay.
And that's why I relocated trees. I put them in more public areas, and I tried to, to provide visual barriers, looking at the intent of the ordinance from public view. Now, maybe mitigating large areas of asphalt, I didn't 100% comply with the first submission that I provided for you, because I got more asphalt without trees. But even that, I can work with you on that, and I can provide some, but I don't think that I can provide the number of trees on this particular site that you are requesting and still maintain the parking requirements that are required by the city.
Okay, because that was the other thing that confused me a little bit when we looked at the first redrafting of this. There seemed to be an increase in the number of parking spaces being provided in what was Bob's supermarket area.
You might have thought that, but the thing that you don't see here is a lot of these parking spaces, particularly on the property line between the, and I don't have it noted on here, between where the bowling alley is and where Ambassador Laundry is, we couldn't do it the way we had planned because of the elevations of the utilities in that site. We lost parking spaces, and these drawings don't even reflect that either. That we could not get a lot of the parking spots in on the property because we had to deal with elevations of utilities. We couldn't cut the necessary cuts that we expected to be able to do to allow that to happen.
So, I mean, well, one thing we'll have to confirm with code is how many are you expected to provide now, and then how many are you providing? Because one of the concerns that we've got is that we've got a very large parking lot there.
I know.
And there's not many trees covering it.
You know what? I want to make this look good, believe me. And I thought that in my new plan, this was not easy to convince the owner to take 25 feet on that of his property on Stimson Avenue and turned it into essentially a green space. It's something that's more than just like an 8-foot or a 4-foot barrier, but actually put much more intense amount of green between the public area, the public road, and the actual street. And you can also see on my new plan that I did retain islands that would be visible from East State Street, and try and, again, when you're looking at this, you have to, the grades and everything, you guys all know this site. You know what it is. You're looking down on this parking lot. You get trees that are growing up, and you're not going to see it from East State Street, as long as you get the proper growth that's going on high enough. And that, because I have power lines on East State Street and Fern Street there.
You got on 5
I
sides.
can't plant large trees. So I had to back those trees off of the property line and try to get as much area as I could deeper into the property so that I could plant larger trees, smaller trees under the property lines, larger trees behind it, to try to create some kind of a tiered barrier, visual barrier between the parking lot and the actual, what the public is going to perceive in the streetscape. You know, if there's concrete out there without a doubt, but there's still room if I can put some more trees in there. I just can't put the number of trees that I have shown on Scheme A, because I'll lose, the city will not allow me to do that, because I have parking requirements for the residents that need to be maintained, but I probably could take some spaces and put more trees in if you thought that that would be feasible.
Do you recall how many places there are?
174
174.
in the parking lot where the Siemens
And
restaurant.
how many units, or how many beds rather,
Well,
in this
there's
complex?
60. Okay, let's go through my notes.
I mean, we don't have to do that now. I can contact code and get the numbers out of them.
I've got all that in here.
Okay. well, if-
I think a couple of spots I could, I mean, like on the, and I know that you're all concerned about the fact that the exits, the entrances have not been closed off, the two of them, but they will be. And we're going to maintain that there's, the only exit or entrance into the parking lot will be next to Ambassador Laundry. So we're going to move those two that are on there now will not be there in the future. And I could possibly use 4 parking spots and add additional large trees within the size of this lot and still maintain the number of parking spots that are required by code for the
One of the other questions that came up was whether you should be considered under the old ordinance or the new ordinance.
I know, you said that too, yeah, I got that.
I mean, we don't think there's any difference really, but we will look at it again. But do you particularly want to be considered under the new ordinance?
I would prefer it because,
Okay.
one thing, David, what happened was the property line between the laundromat, as you can see, that's the biggest change in the alignment of planting on this. And that is where that 5-foot culvert runs. And also, I brought plans that would indicate for you the utility that we had to put in for this project, and where the sewer lines and water lines are running are again on that specific property line. And it was not beneficial, I don't think, for anybody to try and to put any kind of planting in that area. Plus the fact that not only did all the businesses there, we have allowed them now access through our drive complex to get to their properties so that they can service their businesses through this. And this is something that the owner has worked out with them that allows them to utilize his property to gain access to theirs. I mean, that's nothing for you really to concern but we did that, and we allowed some concrete connections between the back of the Culligan's water service area and Ambassador Laundry and the bowling alley for servicing their businesses through this project here. Again, that's nothing that should matter to you, but it's been worked out with the parties involved in this.
I guess one of the final question, because we've hit this problem before, has the fire chief accepted this design as an acceptable design?
Yes, he has.
Okay, good.
This way, before, like I indicated, when we had trees in the middle, he required the ability to get his fire truck up through the middle of this courtyard. So we have actually, we've added 6 or 8 trees into the courtyard compared to the original submission, but we moved them from the middle off to the sides, so that, and when we did the planting and the landscaping there, we actually have a roadway that's 6 inches underneath the ground that can support his fire trucks to get up into the middle of that courtyard.
So that was the reason for the moving of the trees from the
Yes.
center, was request from the fire?
From the fire
marshal.
chief.
Okay.
In the same vein, we ended up actually adding a lot more trees into that center courtyard.
Other questions?
Is there any way to put a couple more tree islands into your large parking lot?
I said that's what I could do.
Okay, you can?
I can
Okay.
afford,
How many, though? I mean, that's,
well, I
or
mean.
is
I-
it too hard to say right
So you have a 280 square feet requirement for each tree,
now? Okay,
I believe. But if I would take I could take 4 parking spots and actually add 4 trees.
okay.
I could do that.
I think that would be a big improvement.
I could do it.
I think that we have had more complaints from townspeople about that big bare lot, parking lot, and nothing planted in it.
Yeah, nothing to help with the
Even
runoff.
screen it will take a while for the trees to get to be some size, and I think if you had a couple more
I could do it.
spots within, it would be a big
I mean, if
improvement.
that, I mean, I can show that, and I would prefer to do it on this, on the driveway that's coming in, on that end there, because actually, that's where asphalt is still located. They didn't pour concrete in those areas. It would define the drive lane. It would also help break up.
Is this the entrance coming off East,
Off
off Stimson?
of Stimson Avenue.
Okay, yeah.
If,
Yeah,
you know,
that-
like the 2 middle aisles, I could take the end 2, you know, there's the 2 main runs of, I have trees at one end, I could put 4 trees at the other end.
Yeah, yeah, I mean.
And that would help
It
visually
would
break that
also
up.
be good if you could get them a little closer to the center of that big parking area.
Well, I could move them that way too. I could take 4, but I don't think I could take more than 4. If I could move them, if you want me to put them in the middle, that's fine too.
Well, we're looking at, you know, there's the numbers that's also important, but the look, you know, where you put them and how much it's going to shade it. So the ones that you have on the end, it's great, but it's almost running north-south, so it's almost they're shading themselves, and we're trying to find a way where you can place them that works for you, that'll shade as much of it as possible.
I can work with David on that, and I can put them anywhere. Well, I can show you how, I mean, I would like to not have to put them where we poured concrete, but there's up to a point where there's asphalt, and maybe there's 5 rows in that we can actually still use, cut into the asphalt and make those, make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make a huge difference. So we're looking at 8 total trees in the center?
I think you said
Yeah.
4.
4,
8.
but what about the,
Yeah.
Well, I have 4
add
here.
4
add
to make
4,
it-
so
yeah.
8 total?
Yeah.
That would be,
You know, in the middle of the parking lot
right,
itself.
that would make a big impact.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I'm really trying to pull these trees back off the power line so I can put big, you know, where we work, David and I, they come by every, couple of years and hack off all the trees that are around us. There's no sense in planting anything on that perimeter because it's not going to survive.
We
Well,
understand.
If it
Yeah.
goes above a certain height, yes, that's why we prefer small to medium there.
Got one more question. On the southeast corner of the lot, you have these row of trees.
Yeah.
When we went through there on the southernmost part, that's all concrete in there. How do you plan on putting the trees in there? Because
Where?
it seems like your parking lot went up to the property
What are we
line.
talking about, south, what? Southeast,
It's that corner right down there.
Yeah,
down there?
Yeah. Right in that corner. There
because
was-
you have next to the building, you have those trees in, but there's 3 at the end. There's a parking lot right there.
That should be, they have to be planted.
I-
That's what I have always said, so that, I mean, if they've made a mistake, they have to plant them.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
It was one of those things we noticed as we were going
I didn't
around.
notice that myself, because I haven't been down there.
Yeah, well, we can understand that.
But those 3 at the end of this parking lot, at the end, they need to be planted.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, there's concrete there.
Well,
Yeah,
that'll
There's,
got it out.
they're just, okay, all right.
I mean, you guys have the authority to say that. I mean, this is not something new. I mean,
Okay.
this plan, those have been on every plan.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
If
we've
there was
noticed
a
that.
mistake made in
Okay.
terms of the expectations there, that needs to be corrected.
Okay, well, we will get with the code office, find out exactly where we are with the parking, to check that we can do what we've just been discussing, because I'd hate to find out that we can't do it because there aren't enough spaces. So
Well,
I'd like to confirm with them.
you need to, give me, like, they're still working, trying to do things, but if you want to get together and just talk about where you want maybe a couple
Yeah.
extra,
Well-
more additional trees, I'm more than willing.
I will contact code tomorrow and see if I can get an answer out of them fairly quickly.
Okay.
as to-
And contact me directly if you want to,
Yeah.
David, and we can work this out.
Yeah, well, if we, what we may well do is organise a session where we can sit down with you around the plan and just work out
Very
some
good.
of these fine details
Thank you.
of this. Okay. Any other questions at all? Okay.
No, just a comment that this is what happens when you cram every bedroom you can on a property, and it just,
I'm sorry?
this is a product of overbuilding the site, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, I still didn't catch that.
To me, this is really a problem, not with the tree ordinance and not with your intentions or our efforts, but a problem with overbuilding the site.
Overbuilding the site?
Yeah, I mean, cramming in all the bedrooms you can, and so you have this issue where every square foot has to be a parking spot.
Well,
And it's
we
a
did
part of the
everything
city
for
code
code.
that requires the parking and everything.
Everything we did is per the requirements and meets the requirements of the
Right.
city of Athens for that site. So you can't say that we're overbuilding. We are building to the maximum potential that's allowable by code.
That's the
And
other
I
thing.
mean, it's a controversy with what you're trying to do here, but that's what we did.
No, we'll try and make sure it fits in with the code.
And believe me, I live here. I want everything to look, I drive by here every day too. I want this to be something that we can all be proud of in our community. I'm not trying to do stuff that's not going to work or that's not going to be attractive. We worked hard to try to make these buildings attractive, and we've worked, is this our best solution? No, it wasn't. We had other ideas, but they were not received well in the presentation forum, and we went to this solution as what we thought was our best option at the time. And now I want to make it as good as it can possibly be.
And I don't mean to say that I think it's a bad thing to put there. I think it's
Well,
a
you look
good
at
use for the area.
I mean, I don't want to go on and on, this is something else, but you look at the master plan for the city of Athens,
Right.
and this is supposed to be high-density residential for our university. I mean,
Right.
this is what this zone or area of Athens is supposed to be doing. And you still want to make it fit in. and I
Yeah,
understand.
well,
Absolutely.
we'll work with you on it.
Okay.
Try and make it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, 252 East State Street. Mr. Soul, do you have a presentation for us? Because we don't, all we've got is this on the agenda. We have no other information.
Yes, I have a presentation for you.
Okay, good. If you've just got one drawing, we could come down there and look at it with you.
That'd be great,
Okay.
if that works for you guys.
So that's, I think, a lot easier for us. Let's go.
Get everybody here,
I can see from here.
okay? Okay, let me give everybody a little bit of an overview. Obviously, this is the property here, the subject property. It's about has everybody been up to the property?
I've seen it before.
Okay, it's the current Athens flower shop,
Yes.
which we've owned diversified properties for about 4 years. We've got about 1.2 acres of ground here. And my company...
Sorry, does that include the homes that there are maybe 3 houses back
No.
on the stretch? Okay, those are on
that's-
separate property.
That's separate.
Okay.
This piece is pretty well defined by
Okay.
this here. Okay, so we've had a couple of different design scenarios over the last few years that have actually been approved that had a lot higher density. If you're familiar with them or not, but what we've done is, in rethinking this project, we've kind of minimized the density of the property. We've come up with a different kind of a plan. The plan that we actually have approved that we could build is a pretty large one-unit condominium building, which pretty much takes up this whole footprint in here. And in here somewhere, but the footprint was pretty much this whole section here, filled it up. In reconsidering the project and trying to determine really what the highest and best use is and take a harder look at the real residential nature of the east side neighborhood, what we came up with, which has already received preliminary plat approval, is a different concept. And the concept involves basically the recycling of the flower shop and the area where the garage is into residential units, as well as creating 5 residential condominium houses that are front on this road that loops around here off of Madison Avenue. Our intention, because of the nature of the property, is to preserve all of the natural landscaping that exists on the property within really the confines of what we can do. I did yesterday, under the rather unfriendly light conditions we had with the weather, take a few pictures just to give you a little bit better sense of what we've got going here.
Some pretty good native trees there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what this is here, this 1/8-inch scale drawing is really more of a compressed version of this area in here, okay? Instead of, I've got a surveyed map of the whole property, but in talking first about the flower shop and the garage area and the foliage in this area here. Here's the flower shop currently, and another photograph of it. This is the area right here, which is to the, right in this area here. And this photograph here was taken of the bank along here,
Okay.
okay? Just to
Yeah.
kind of, once again, I think the picture's worth 1,000 words, and
Yeah.
that's why I took the pictures. Our construction plan is to preserve all of these trees and all of the specimens. We're planning on coming in here and, as meticulously as possible, converting this into a single-family residence. The garage is in such disrepair, and there's an old chimney up here, that in looking at it and studying it somewhat, we realize that the best solution is not completely taking it down, but restructuring it in a way that it's going to be a little bit more succinct, and we're just going to have a 1-story residential unit right on here. Once again, all of the landscape is going to be preserved.
Well, now, aren't there foundations of the old greenhouses up there too, or have those been removed?
They're gone.
Okay.
There's a couple of old retaining walls, which you can see right there. But as far as, this area that we're talking about, which is, let's say, the first part of the project here, our plan is to pretty much preserve the existing, because what we're trying to do is almost pop the new construction right inside of what's existing.
It's there, yeah.
And leave all of the pretty spectacular foliage.
Yeah, there's some
that's been-
unusual plantings in
Yeah,
there.
very unusual. So that's our goal with that. Obviously, there's certain realistic construction tolerances we're going to need to get in and out, but we're not planning on taking everything down and planning new. We're trying to
Okay.
maintain what we've got, especially a lot of this stuff here. these trees, I'm imagining all of that's going to be able to stay. As far as this area here, once again, to give you more of a visual understanding of the spot, this roadway here, if you're standing here and you're looking this way, this is what you're seeing right now. And this, I wrote existing wooded hillside. So this entire hill that goes up, which is pretty much this whole hillside, will be untouched. Number one, it'll probably be untouched because I don't own it. So, yeah, that's Mr. Farley. I don't think you have to talk to him about that. But
Yeah, you just had a big tree come down.
yeah, I've discussed with him, there are certain things about the fact that this has been, I don't want to say neglected, it's just, it needs a little bit of attention.
Yeah.
So we're planning on giving it a little bit of attention. Where I've got existing mature hillside plantings, this line I've drawn here pretty much indicates from here to about in here. So everything that you're seeing in here that's green, these evergreens, which is this here. You can see it now, once again, now I'm up top looking back down. All of these evergreens are going to remain.
Okay.
So what we're also doing here,
And will that willow remain also?
the willow will not.
Okay.
Try to get some more stuff in there, but that is actually our building area, which is this section in here. This kind of, this is where the old greenhouse, I believe, was, in this area in here, which is right in through here. So in that area there, which it's more expansive than this picture looks because I didn't get back that far, but in this slot here is where we're going to be putting these guys. And the character of these houses, this is preliminary, we've got them further along now, but basically what we're looking at is bungalow-style, east side-style houses that are going to basically be more linear to fit into the site, but yet they will terminate before we get to the spot where the hill is. So they kind of pretty much fit right into this slot here.
And this is this the parking, or is the parking in the back by
The parking is, you're coming
by
along
the upper
here.
road? The road that
The
that
park,
borders on Mr. Farley's.
You've got, so we're that way around now.
exactly.
So you're coming in off Cable Lane?
Yeah.
Madison.
Madison, sorry, yeah.
Madison. Yeah, you can go either way. You can come in this way and come around, you can come this way and go around.
Is there actually an entrance to that point? Okay.
Oh, yeah. And this
Yeah, it
is
drops
actually,
down quite a bit, but you'll,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
we're going to work a little bit on this distance. We're going to try to soften this grade, so instead of it going like that, it's going to have more of a little bit of an incline.
More gradual.
yeah.
A little bit, I mean,
Yeah,
within-
it'll
within
help.
reason,
Right,
it's, there's so much we can do, and we're planning on taking this gravel road down about a foot, pushing that down a little bit to help us out. So the parking is pretty much each house faces, this is, the front of this faces just like that. Okay, so if you're looking at, standing in this driveway, you're looking at this. Okay, so you've got 2 parking spots here and a 1-car garage.
Okay.
And then at the end here, we're going to create, which exists now, an additional overflow parking area, for
Yeah.
a little bit of parking. And then there's also some parking which currently exists along Madison, which is going to remain.
Okay.
As far as landscaping goes, this represents the existing, these guys. These big, I think they're, I know what they are, they're Norway spruces. And our goal is to leave this, and it's important to us to maintain this barrier from Madison.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that whole barrier is, we're planning on maintaining that. along with, once again, this whole hillside staying vegetated with these plantings that were put up. So we're really, once again, just like the existing structures, we're trying to just kind of drop these guys in here. And instead of having one big building, by having these separated by about 15 feet in between them, I think it's going to give it a lot more of a residential quality to it. We're going to have, this is all green space going through, here, 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 and here. And we're planning on putting a nice, either a flowering or a hardwood tree in each island along this road here.
Okay.
And then, once again, we're going to do some level of foundation planting as it would relate to along the side here, when you come along the driveway, and something to kind of tie in around the corner. Most of this is going to be lawn area, because there's a wooded hillside here, we've got trees here, this is all vegetated.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our landscape plan. If you want a copy of this, I'd be happy to leave one with you. And I certainly try to answer any of your questions.
Well, we're going to need a bit more detail, I think, than what we've got here at the moment, because one of the concerns I've got is exactly what are we calling impermeable surfaces on here that are on this property. I can see, for instance, what looks like the roadway here. I imagine the speckled thing is the roadway, and there's a gap between there and what I imagine is your property line. So with a bit of luck, if that is the case, then there may be some trees in there which we can count towards your number of trees. So how close do you think that, because that's looking down that roadway, isn't it? The one that runs along there.
Yeah, right here.
The property line,
I mean, is the property line the road, or is the property line what's been shown in grey on there?
the property line actually runs right along here.
Oh,
So it's on the inside of the road.
Yeah.
okay, so that isn't your road then?
No, we have an easement forever.
No, but that means
Yes.
you've got less impermeable surface to worry about. That's why we need some details, because the way you just heard me describe it to Mr. Valentil, the way we look at a site like this is, if we want to work out the total number of trees it requires, we just take the area and divide by 1767. We then have to look at the permeable, impermeable surfaces and see where trees can be planted to meet the more detailed requirements. But the first crack at it is just to say, how many trees is this site going to need in order to meet that goal of 40% tree coverage at maturity?
Well, the site is completely covered with trees already.
Yeah, we would count the existing
Oh, yeah,
trees.
yeah. And that, again, is why it's important for us to get a feel for what's actually there in terms of trees.
Well, I can.
And how close they are to the roadway. I mean,
Yeah,
you heard me talking to Mr. Reeser about his property, where there's a roadway on there, it's got trees lining it. They count towards the coverage. So,
Well, right now we're proposing 1, 2, 3, 4 trees, plus everything that's there.
Yeah.
And that's really what we've got. I think the calculations I did is the property's got about 52,500 square feet of land. The
which is about-
roof surface and the driveway surface is about 7,000 square feet. So we are covering about 13.4% of the property, if that answers your question.
Well, you said 52, how many? 52?
52,500 square feet is the approximate acreage in square footage.
That's approximately 30 trees that we need for the entire
Okay, you
site.
got them there, they're already there.
And then you
Count.
said 13%, including the buildings.
Yeah, if you take the roof
Yeah.
square footage and the driveway square footage, you'll come up with about 7,000 square feet.
And that includes the roof of the present buildings there.
No, I didn't count these two here. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. And what about the roadway? Did you include that in there? Or is this roadway?
The roadway is not part of the property.
Oh, I remember this from before, yes.
Yeah.
There's some
Interesting, okay.
interesting easements
In
going
between.
around here.
Well, what we own is the grass.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay,
Well, it shouldn't
right.
be too difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I have a suggestion.
You can see the property line right there.
Oh, it's that dark one.
Mhm. So, I mean, if you follow the map
Ah,
and you
yes.
see the line,
Yeah.
you can see where it
Okay.
goes.
Look where it is out in Madison as well.
Yeah, we actually own part of Madison Avenue, I guess.
Welcome to Athens.
Yeah, it was done a long time ago. I'm sure this was a part of a very large farm at some point.
Yeah, okay.
I have a suggestion for these trees, if
Okay.
you're wanting flowering trees. The
Um,
yellowwood is a medium-sized shade tree, but it has lovely white flowers on it.
Yellow wood. Well, we're certainly interested in your suggestions. You know, what I like to do typically is to vary the trees and vary the way they sit off a road. I'm not interested, I don't like rows of things. You know, one of the things obviously that's attractive about this site and was done a long time ago is the fact that there's a real kind of a random natural landscape look about this property.
That's quite mature, yeah.
That's mature,
Yeah.
you know, and once again, and, you know, I think you guys are pretty familiar with what we do. This is not, we take a lot of care and concern in any project we do to try to save just about everything we can. So
And then-
that's our goal.
Seems like this will be a great use for that site.
Yeah.
It sounds real nice.
Well, now that we've got to this point, you know, it looks a lot more obvious than it did to us in the beginning.
Okay.
It's been kind of an interesting process to
Sure.
try to get to where we are. And I think we've got a very nice solution for this location, and I think it's going to meet a very important demand in town housing that is just very difficult to come by, especially that's new.
I was going to
residential
mention that
construction.
too. I mean, there's not that type of
Convenient
housing
location.
in town.
You're right there. You can very nicely walk to town and et cetera.
Paul, what do we need to do for the process to work
They are,
forward?
actually, I
Come and
suppose
join
I
us.
should come up here.
Paul Loeb, the city planner, for those in the audience who don't.
They, at this point, they have, we've had a public hearing on this. They have appeared before the planning commission twice. The last time was a week and a half ago, and they did receive a preliminary approval for the plan. At this point, they are working on their final plan, which will then go before the planning commission again, with the intention of getting a final approval, which will then be forwarded on to the city council for the final seal of approval. They would need from an approval or an acceptance of their landscaping and tree plan from the tree commission. So I guess it's a question of whether enough information has been given as to, or if there's anything that you need from them before you can issue an approval.
Well, I guess, our usual concerns, and we saw them in the presentation, Mr. Valento, where you had a problem with utilities that you didn't perceive, that you didn't have detailed plans. I mean, you can't get everything
Right.
perfect, but
And that
it'd be
would really
nice if
only
we-
affect these 5 trees or
Right.
4 trees.
Well, hopefully, yes, yeah.
Now, I believe I have a copy of ADP's utilities with me. This site has been reviewed by our staff, who had no concerns about utilities, et cetera. Whether there would be, I mean, it is already a pretty wooded lot, so I would think
Yeah.
there shouldn't be many issues with underground utilities interfering with trees.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't see any problem at the moment, but I think formally we have to give preliminary approval, don't we, for him to go to the planning commission.
That is
Get his
correct. You would
approval
need a
on the time
preliminary
for
approval from the
41.
tree commission
Yeah, okay.
to advance, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to count existing trees, which I don't suspect will be a problem.
No, as I say, I mean, we can, I think that the easiest way is if the tree commissioners are happy, I'll write a note to the code office, copy to you, because we're still in the transition of knowing exactly who's going to handle these things. Could indicate
The more
that-
people you give it to, the better the guarantee it gets to the right
indicating that
person.
we're going
right?
to give him preliminary approval, summarising what we've just said here about the fact that the site needs 30 trees
Okay.
for its to come into compliance. And I'll work out exactly what that is, but I'm pretty sure it's close to 30. And that's basically it. I mean, there's no dumpster issues. It doesn't look like there's any screening issues, from what I can see. So I think
Yeah, there's quite a few. I don't know really exactly how you're going to categorize trees versus all of this vegetation. I hope, there's some reasonable taking into account what's there as it relates to trees.
Yeah, we do take we count medium size shade trees.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
large.
I think we need to give credit for evergreens as well in this regard.
Especially something
Certainly,
that
tree
mature.
forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we really only have so much room here, realistically, to plant trees. We do need, I want to maintain a certain amount of lawn area between these buildings.
Something open, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely surrounded by as much vegetation as there can be, and I think we have to be, I don't want to say realistic with our expectations here, but I think we need to be, when we look at what's around this property. And I think it's, pretty indicative when you look at that picture there.
I think those are 2 locusts in front, if I remember correctly.
Honey locust,
Yeah.
as I remember. I think
Yeah.
they're the yellow leaf one.
All right.
Okay, so I guess I'll just, you guys will come up with some kind of a count,
Yeah.
and you'll let us know, and
Yeah, well, I think what we may have to do is several of us will go down there and have a look around and count them up. Now we know. It would be useful if we can keep a copy of this and of this one.
yeah, you can certainly have a copy of this. You've got one of these, you can get a hold of, give
We
to
do,
David.
yeah.
Okay.
They have these 30 feet apart.
Yeah.
And that willow would look pretty good in someone's living room, I'm telling you.
Okay, well, once again, I just hope that we can somehow figure out a way that this is gonna, your number, your calculated number makes sense with the reality of this lot.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the site. I don't suspect it'll be a problem, but
Okay,
we'll just officially do the count.
thank you all for your time. Oh, do you want one of these?
Okay, to continue with the remainder of the agenda, that's the end of the landscape ordinance issues. I've not got a report from Anne on the emerald ash borer. I can report that our fall planting tree list is going to get planted. The city managed to find the money to plant the trees, and so hopefully that will be done in the next few weeks. I believe Ron has either finished and submitted or is very close to submitting the Tree City USA application. I'll get in touch with him to confirm that. Any questions on those 3 items at all? Okay. Then, what we have is Mr. Broadhurst. Would you like to talk to us? We don't mind, you can sit at the table, you can stand at the podium. I don't mind which. Whatever's easiest for you.
Actually, for reference, I think I gave you my extra copies. No, I didn't mean the whole thing. I mean, it was a duplication of the original.
Don't think we took
Those
out.
all
Sure,
paper
I have it
clipped,
right
yeah.
here.
Okay.
This is a packet that I put together
Okay.
in relation to what was discussed at the previous meeting of the commission. My name is Greg Broadhurst. I live at 14 Granville Avenue. I'm a certified arborist and urban forester and environmental planner. I live in an area that's just been recently undergone some construction due to street improvements, which is coming along very well. And what I wanted to do in coming here this evening was to reiterate that I would like to see some mitigation in regards to some lost street trees and we've already had this discussion, but I specified them in this letter that I wrote to you for the record. Since then, actually, a couple more trees I've noticed of not so high value, but still the loss is real obvious in that landscape there. It's amazing. When I came back from my Thanksgiving dinner up in Columbus, I came back to my house and I was just like, wow, I can't believe it looks like this, because I'm so much used to living in the tree cover, really. So I have enclosed with the letter of requesting replacement suggested species, which I've done a lot of research on, as a matter of fact, in a class that I just took in landscape management at Hocking College. And I find it is very underused, very suitable for the site, and I would like to request that the Planning Commission approve installation of that species on that slope, interplanted with anthracnose-free white dogwood, native white dogwood. One thing about the replacements, I suggested that they be replaced with the compensatory caliper of size of tree stock in order to get a good start there. And those particular size calipers wouldn't be needed to be installed by somebody who had the equipment and who was professionally capable of doing that. It wouldn't be a city job. I've had a conversation with the streets director previous to this about replacements, and he agreed to fund these replacements from the city's streets budget, so that you know that. So, and in regards to locating the naturalized tree stock and supervising the plantings, I made a note in the letter that I would also offer my services pro bono in regards to their installation, because I know everybody's strapped for time, and we don't have a full-time, we don't have a city forester that's able to pay attention to things like this full-time, or a city arborist in that regard. So I hope that you would give this some strong consideration and approval, and looking forward to a response. I would like to get this planting done, of course, as soon as possible. After the finish of work on the Granville-Mary project, which should be sometime next week. That's one reason I came this evening.
Okay. I will certainly contact Andy Stone and find out what the status of the project is, because clearly we couldn't go ahead until they have finished.
Oh yeah. And that's the idea of being here, a step ahead of the completion of the project.
And you're right. This would be a good time of year to do any replacements. I am not so happy about the idea of trying to relocate large trees like that.
That may be negotiable.
Well,
but it's
I think
in the spirit of compensation. I mean, there's such a large. But I think one way to do it would be to plant more of smaller. Yeah, more of smaller caliper,
and do it that
12
way.
to 20 feet on centers, especially the suggested species, which I suggested there in the packet, is very appropriate for the site. I think it could also go along to suggest further use of that species in the city.
Yeah, no, to my mind, these species that you've chosen, they're good ones for that site.
Excellent.
We did visit the site a couple of weeks ago.
I was going to ask you, because I went there that day and it was pretty.
Well, I mean,
we look from each end.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's right, because it wasn't easy.
We couldn't get through, but we could see there was an awful lot of work going on there, and it is a heavily wooded area, but it's an area that you don't want to lose trees from just because it is heavily wooded.
Oh, no. And of course, but the soil types match up. The slope and aspect are right. It's understory. It's south. I mean, northwest, basically, but there's enough sun there that would encourage growth of either of those species. And
how many trees are we talking about?
Probably about 5. This is in the general, because I lost one at the base of my driveway. I don't expect another tree to be planted right at the base of my driveway, because you'd have to grind the root. If you ever try to cut mulberry, you can ruin a saw. That's not going to be happening. That's going to turn into a signpost somehow. But nearby there, on a row on the slope, are sites available for plantings of the other suggested trees. And I would probably make 3 and 2. At maturity, you're going to have maybe a 12 to 20 foot wide area of foliage as far as Cyanthus goes. Our fringe tree, by the way, for those who are watching me on the tube. And of course, dogwood has more of an excurrent upright form than that, and that's what I was thinking that would be nice to be interplanted with.
If you're putting that many trees in, I was wondering whether maybe one should be a large shade tree, because those are basically understory trees that you're talking about.
Oh, I know. This is a suitable location for understory trees. I already have planted there in the vicinity forsythia, specifically to hold the soil, but also for ornamental. And there is one out of the original plantings of white dogwood that's still existent. That's it's right close to the driveway. Actually, it'll probably benefit for the fact that we'll have less competition now. It'll probably have a growth spurt within the next season, no doubt. And I don't remember that being anthracnose free or not, but it's viable. It's a good about 6 to 8 inch dogwood. And I was suggesting that those be interplanted with the Cyanthus and the other dogwoods as well. And like the street director had committed to at least the 2 that were removed erroneously in the past. This had nothing to do with the street director or the streets department as we have now. They just didn't know. They were victims to a sidearm, more as I indicated. So, but this will essentially replace that and maybe even set the tone, which I'm hoping that this planting not only will mitigate the loss of trees, but kind of set a tone as far as the street design. I mean, you wouldn't believe how nice the street's turning out. So, why not cap it off with some nice plantings?
Yes, certainly that area being so heavily wooded, I think these
and you can see it. You'll be able to see it from Second Street.
Yeah. Understory trees should survive.
Okay.
Well, so thank you.
Okay, thank you for your efforts. Okay, I think, unless there's anything else, yes.
Yep. This is time I step up here and introduce myself. I don't know if you guys know yet. My name is John Paskey, and I am the new code director. I've heard everything you've said, and I know what to look for tomorrow morning when you come see me.
Okay.
And I am here to speak about the McDonald's site. Chuck Miller wanted me to fill you in on it.
Okay.
We drove by there today, and apparently it was agreed that 39 spruces would be planted. Were they to be along the rear, or you have to fill me in a little bit on that?
They would be towards the rear, yes,
Okay.
because they couldn't be planted.
I counted 20 back along through there. The 2 large shade trees on the northwest corner seem to be there. There's 2 of them planted. The 3rd large shade tree on the south side, they got one in front of the dumpster enclosure, so it would be present.
Was the dumpster enclosure?
The dumpster is enclosed very nicely, actually. It's got a split face wall around the dumpster part on the front.
And is it landscaped as well?
Yeah, they have the junipers in front, and I think that'll look very nice long term.
Yeah.
And then the other part was, I don't know what the agreement was out in front, so maybe.
Well, in front there were to be, I think, it may actually have been the white fringe trees we were just talking about, but there were small trees to be planted there. And I gather that that's now going to be impossible because of the water main that's
There
underneath
is a 14-inch high-pressure, 100 PSI water main buried at 24 inches deep. So it's pretty shallow right through there. So probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They can obviously do something with the landscaping in front, but I don't know what the recommendation is or what you guys want to suggest to them.
Well, I mean, I think we just leave it up to them to landscape it as best they can and not to expect trees to be planted there. Because I think Nick Carr didn't want trees over his water main, and I understand that.
Especially that shallow.
Yeah. And so what we would like to see happen then is those missing trees planted at the rear of the property. And All of that should then be recorded in the file for this particular property. I mean, obviously you found the letter that said 39 trees.
Got it right here.
Yeah, good. And that, I think, would then bring them into compliance as best as we can at that site.
Yeah.
Is that, everyone
Yeah,
Yes.
agrees with that?
There's not much we can do in the front.
Yeah. I mean, when we're faced with these obstacles, the trees have to give way, I'm
Right.
afraid. That's the...
Just send them a letter and see what they say or do.
Yeah, but they will have to plant those trees towards the back.
Okay.
Because actually what happened was that a lot of trees were removed at the back during the construction that initially they said they were going to be able to keep. And that was when we revised the plan and came up with that the one that you've got there.
Well, as you know, today was the first time I saw it, so
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome to Athens.
Thank you.
Anyone got any other questions for our new code director while he's here?
Just to say welcome as well.
It's good to say fire away.
We'll give you a month to get warmed up.
Well,
We'll get you next month.
Colder next.
Okay, anything else? No, in that case, there are the minutes from the last meeting, which I have some copies of buried here somewhere. There we go. So if anyone wants it, we'll check over a copy. Those 3 copies, that's all. Glance over them and let me know if there are any corrections concern ourselves with. Motion to approve them.
I'll approve it.
Okay,
I second it.
thank you. Any objections? Hearing none, we now have minutes of the last meeting. And with that, I need to work with the city to find out how to get these minutes up on our website. I noticed our current agenda didn't make it to the website. I'm not sure whether that's because I called it a draft or not, but I promised in my New Year's resolution to try and get some of this stuff up on the website. And also, Anita has given me the files for our website, and so I'll try and work again to get those up too. Okay, with that, we'll adjourn till